Now we are going to start one of the biggest unit, that is the human physiology. Why human physiology is the biggest unit I'm saying? See, suppose for the CSIR people, in case of a part B, we can expect, friends, 4 to 5 questions in the part B. When it comes to the part C also, we can expect 4 to 5 questions. So the people who are preparing for the JL and DL exams, they can expect a minimum 10 and maximum 15 number of questions from the chapter of human physiology. It's one of the very big chapter. All the people has to study a very, you have to study from very basic, very depth, and very critical type of questions can be asked from the endocrine system. I mean to say, you can get all the type of questions: statement, analytical, logical, experimental, matching based questions. All kind of questions can be asked in the exam. What are the various subunits that we have to cover under the concept of human physiology? Under the human physiology, it's a very big concept. We people has to cover the endocrine system, then followed by the respiratory system, then the blood circulation and cardiovascular system, then followed by the digestive system, then excretory system, then follow little bit, not a very depth, a little bit about the reproduction, and we should also focus on the sense organs, then followed by the nervous system. But among all, which systems are more important? Endocrine, respiratory, blood circulation and cardiovascular, excretory system, nervous system. These 5 systems are most important system where we people can expect a more number of the questions. So that's why it is very important. Every one of you has to study from very, very, very basic to the very, very advanced level. By that, however they may ask the question, we should be in a position to answer all of them very easily. Okay. Please do not disturb me for 30 minutes. Let me explain you 30 minutes. Then I will give you the time to ask all your doubts. You can raise all your doubts. Now, listen to me very correctly. Endocrine system. How can you define the word endocrine system? In a simple words, what I can tell you, the system which is, listen everyone, the system which is involved in releasing the hormone. Friends, not only involved in releasing the hormone, it is also involved in regulating the hormone. Now you have to ask me, sir, why we have to regulate the hormone? See, friends, remember, not only hormone in our body, every single process that is happening in our body, every process has to be regulated. So that's why the endocrine system not only secreting or releasing the hormones, friends, even it plays a crucial role in the regulation of the hormones as well. Now listen. So endocrine system consists of what? Endocrine system consists of endocrine glands. And most of the people will think that the endocrine glands are restricted or they are situated at Aishwarya, please mute your mic. So they will be situated only at a one particular place. That is absolutely wrong statement. You know, right? Endocrine glands are situated throughout the body. So they are present, see, starting from the pituitary, you see here throughout the body till the testes and ovaries, everywhere the endocrine glands and the respected hormones are present. So don't think that endocrine system is situated at one particular place. The endocrine glands are situated throughout the body. And from the 11th standard, we started reading the simplest definitions. Endocrine glands. What we use it to define? Endo, inside. What do you mean by that? They don't have any kind of a bag, any kind of a pouch-like structure or a bag-like structure or a duct-like structure to store something. So it can't store anything. So whatever the hormone that it is synthesizing, friends, that particular hormone, it is directly releasing into the bloodstream. Not to get confused with that. That is what exactly we can call endocrine glands. If it synthesizes a hormone, immediately release into the blood because it can't store anywhere. Example, you can take thyroid, parathyroid, adrenaline, pituitary, pineal, thymus, all these. The moment they secrete something, immediately they're gonna release into the bloodstream. Then next one we can call the exocrine glands. So they are having a bag-like structure. They are having a pouch-like structure. They are having the duct. They are having the lumen. Lumen means inner space. So whatever the hormones that they are secreting, friends, they will directly release into the lumen of that respective organ only. So they don't directly release into the blood. So what I mean to say that whenever there is a requirement, then they will be utilized. Otherwise, what they will be stored in the lumen. Example: sweat gland, salivary gland, sebaceous gland, gastric glands. These are all what, friends? Exocrine glands. There is another gland. What do we call? You can call the heterocrine gland. Sometimes instead of using the word heterocrine, they use the word mixed gland. What's the best example you people can take it? You can take the example of the pancreas. Because friends, why do we call it as the heterocrine or the mixed portion? The reason is simple, friends, because it is having the exocrine portion also, and friends, it is also having the endocrine portion also. Since it is having both portions, we generally call it them as the mixed gland or the heterocrine gland, not to get confused with that point. Okay, now all the students try to understand my statements very correctly without confusion. Just listen to me correctly. I want you to answer my simple questions. Now, whether it is the endocrine gland doesn't matter, whether it is the exocrine gland doesn't matter, friends. Both glands are going to secrete or release what? Hormones. Everyone, please mute your mics. Don't make any disturbance. Now, anything is going to show their releasing their hormone. Now, friends, how can I define the word hormone? In a simple words, hormones you can call chemical messengers. In sometimes you can call hormones as the primary messenger. You should not call hormone as the secondary messenger. Okay, you should always say that primary messenger or the chemical messenger. Why did I use the word messenger? I have used the word messenger, friends, because it is transferring the information from one part of the body to the another part of the body. That's why we can call it messenger. Every student has to listen. One of the most important statement is that any hormone in our body, you take any hormone that is synthesized or released in the body, it should be released in the small amount. Let me tell you a simple definition. Low the concentration, listen every one of you. Low the concentration, high the activity. Such an important statement it is. What is opposite? Suppose if the concentration become high, the activity become low, and it may cause the toxicity also. Any hormone, whether it is a plant hormone, whether it is an animal hormone, friends, if the hormone want to show their better action, it is very important, friends, the hormone has to be released only in the low concentration. Such an important statement it is. So first statement, the properties. Hormones are said to be chemical messenger. The second point, we can say that every hormone has to be released at the low concentration. The most unique statement, friends, it's a very important statement. Listen to me correctly. The site of production and the site of action is entirely different. Friends, what do you mean by the word site of production and the site of action is entirely different? You people just imagine what exactly I'm saying. Suppose at the hypothalamus, you know very well, GnRH hormone will release. GnRH hormone further release the stimulation of the FSH and LH. FSH and LH involved in the production of estrogen and progesterone. What I'm trying to explain you, actually the production of the estrogen and progesterone started at hypothalamus. But where they're showing action, they're acting on the ovaries during the menstrual cycle. So what I'm trying to explain you, their production is different, their action is entirely different. Not to get confused with that particular point. So that's why the site of production and the site of action is entirely different. Never ever get confused with that point. And the most unique statement every student has to remember for the exam is that you all people commonly know that What is the stream of transport of every hormone in the animal or human body? Blood. So blood has their stream of transport. The unique point here, any hormone, any kind of a hormone in our body, if it want to show their action, the hormone has to associated with the receptor present on the targeted cell. What I'm trying to explain you, if the hormone wants to bring their action, it is mandatory, it is necessary, it is compulsory. It has to attach to the specific receptors that are present in the targeted cell. Never get confused with that. Now you friends look into this beautiful diagram. This is the secreting cell. What do you mean by the word secreting cell? The hormone releasing cell. So what the hormone releasing cell is doing, it releases the hormone. The blue color one only the hormone. Now see, look into the point. The hormone started traveling via blood as their stream of transport. And what is happening? The moment it reaches to the targeted area, it comes out of the blood circulation. See, look into this. This is called the receptor, right? It immediately go and associated with the receptor that is present on the targeted cell. Then only, friends, hormone can show their action. Otherwise, hormone never enhance or never show any kind of a action. Never ever get confused with that point. If the hormone want to show the action, which is mandatory, it has to associate it with the receptor mandatory. So these are all a simple type of simple properties of the hormone. Now, just now, I have explained it to all of you. Friends, if any hormone want to show the action, it has to associate it with the receptor. That's a good point. Now, the question is very clear. The hormone associated with which type of receptor? That's a very good point. So, the hormone to associate with the receptor, first of all, you have to understand the solubility of the hormone. Depending on their solubility, the type of receptors will be entirely different. There are majorly two types of hormones that we can observe. One is called water-soluble hormone. Best example I can tell to all the students, whichever you can see a proteinaceous hormone. I'll give you the example. Let's take insulin. Let's take glucagon. Let's take oxytocin. Let's take somatostatin. They're all what? Protein. Proteinaceous hormone. None of the proteinaceous hormone never ever cross the plasma membrane. If they want to cross the plasma membrane, it's not possible directly. So friends, the point is crystal clear. Since they can't cross the plasma membrane, look into the point. They have to attach us to the receptor which are present on the plasma membrane only. So what is the name of this particular receptor that is used by the water-soluble hormones? We generally call as GPCR. Every student know it. You studied many number of times. Z protein coupled receptor. How many number of times we studied in the cell signaling? So remember, in the exam point of view, you have to remember they can ask a direct question. Which of the following hormone? Let's take an example. They'll give the serotonin. They will ask which of the receptor can be used by that particular serotonin. For that, you have to remember what hormone it is actually. And all the water-soluble hormones, friends, we have very broadly categorized into multiple types. So all of you, please try to understand my statements very correctly, friends. They are broadly categorized into amine hormones, peptide hormones, eicosanoid hormones. It's very important, friends. Now you tell me why I have used the word amine hormones. Why I have used this word? I have used the word amine hormones because all these hormones are derived from amino acids. That's why we use the word amine hormones, not to get confused with that point. Now, why do we call peptide hormones, friends, which are proteinaceous in nature? That's why we can call peptide hormones. And there is a specialized class which we can call eicosanoid hormones. It's a very specialized ones. Actually, they are all derived from the arachidonic acid. The best example, prostaglandin, leukotrienes. Every student know very well, you read many number of times in the immunology. What is the function of the prostaglandins and leukotrienes? You know, right? Prostaglandin is the chemical which causes the inflammation in our body. Leukotrienes are the one which will stimulate the pain. Suppose when we get a small cut on our skin, what happened that time? The bleeding occur, inflammation will cause. The inflammation is mediated by the prostaglandin. You know, right? Wherever the area that got swollen or that got inflamed, it gives a lot of pain. How does the pain occurs? Of course, with the help of leukotrienes. They are what kind of hormone? Eicosanoid hormones. And the peptide hormones, which are purely proteinaceous in nature. Amine hormone. Friends, in the exam, we also get the question in the form of a matching. Hormones, they will give in one column, and on other column, they will give the name of the amino acids. That's why you have to learn very clearly. We will discuss everything. No need to worry about that. So every one of you very simply answer my question. Look into this 4 and every student please answer me. Among this 4, which amine hormone involved in the hypersensitivity reaction? What are allergic reactions? Every student answer. Quickly answer. Yeah, what was the answer? Undoubtedly, friends, histamine is the one which is actually involved in the hypersensitivity or the allergic reactions. Anyway, we're going to read that elaboratively in the immunology class. Let me ask you very simple question, very simple question. Think and answer my question. Which of the following amine hormone, listen my words correctly, which is controlling 90% of functions of the central nervous system? What I'm trying to say is, which of the hormone control 90% functions of the central nervous system? All the students remember, which is called serotonin. Serotonin is the hormone. Most of the central nervous system functions can be mediated by the serotonin only. When we are reading the nervous system, you'll get a very good idea about that. Now look into the point, friends. What I'm trying to explain you, whether it is a amine hormone, peptide hormone, eicosanoid hormone, the point is that, friends, it cannot cross the plasma membrane. We all people commonly know about it. Now that's why they are using receptor. What receptor? It is called cell surface receptor. You all people studied in the cell signaling many number of times. The moment hormone comes and attaches, the GPCR get activated. GPCR immediately activate the G protein. Then G protein activate the secondary messenger called cyclic AMP. Cyclic AMP is activating a protein called PKA, protein kinase A. And finally, it will show the response. Now you have to ask me, sir, how do you know which secondary messenger is getting activated? How do you know what response it is going to show? Everything is dependent on the primary messenger, nothing but the hormone. Suppose example, this hormone is glucagon. Every student know very well what's the function of a glucagon. Break down the glycogen into glucose. If it wants to break down the glycogen into glucose, what is required? Enzymes are required. So friends, now what's the ultimate goal of this particular hormone glucagon? It has to stimulate several secondary messengers and several proteins which are involved in the synthesis of these enzymes, which are going to break down the glycogen to glucose. So what I'm trying to explain to all of you is that depending on the primary messenger, the entire system will run inside. Not to forget that. But if that particular hormone or a primary messenger want to show their action, what is more important? More important is it has to associated with the receptor compulsory. If no receptor, the hormone never ever show any kind of action. These are all what hormones, friends? Water-soluble hormones. You can understand that very clearly. Now, what kind of hormones we're going to study? Lipid-soluble hormone. The best example, you can remember all the steroid hormones, all the sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, corticosteroid. Now, the question also very good question. The question is that, sir, how can you say that the steroid hormones can easily cross the plasma membrane? What is the reason? How they can cross? The answer is very simple, friends. All the steroid hormones are having cholesterol as their backbone. Such a simple statement. Very good. They are lipid soluble. Why? Because they're having cholesterol as their backbone. So cholesterol is the lipid molecule. So since the cholesterol is the backbone, all these hormones can easily cross the plasma membrane. Look into this beautiful diagram. This is the hormone. You can see that. This is the hormone. Now, friends, what happened? Hormone, this is the blood circulation. From the blood circulation, hormone came out. Now, the moment hormone came out, look into this, look into this. they have entered. Where they have entered, friends? They have entered in, they crossed the plasma membrane, they entered into the nucleus level. What is the common statement? The common statement is that whether it is a lipid-soluble hormone, whether it is a water-soluble hormone, what is the most important point? The hormone has to associate it with the receptor compulsory. Without receptor, it can't show their action. Since it's a free hormone, it crossed the plasma membrane, cross the nuclear membrane, it will go and associated with the receptor present within the nucleus. Then it will allow the expression of that particular gene. So based on that hormone, the specific response can be shown. So what's the final conclusion? The final conclusion is that lipid-soluble hormones are going to use the receptor we can call the intracellular receptor. Whereas water-soluble hormones are going to use cell surface receptor. The word self-surface means, friends, they are very specifically present only on the plasma membrane. They are not present on any other place. Now listen to me. When I use the word intracellular receptor, where the intracellular receptors are present? Some intracellular receptors are present directly in the cytosol, but most of the intracellular receptors are present within the nucleus. But the point is that both are present inside the cell only. That's why we call them as the intracellular receptor. Never get confused with that. Now, friends, what we studied so far. We understand what is hormone. We understand the definition of the hormone. We understand the properties of the hormone. We understand the type of hormones based on their solubility, which we can call lipid soluble, water soluble. And we also understand what kind of receptors that are used by the hormones. Now what we have to understand, friends, step by step, all the hormones we have to study. See how many number of hormones we have to study in the human physiology. Sorry, in the endocrine system, everything we have to study. Suppose pineal body, which is giving rise to the melatonin, what it will do? See, this is the summary, which is controlling the sleep cycle, circadian rhythms. Parathyroid gland control calcium levels. See, during the time of revision, you have to remember in this simple way. Thymus gland plays a crucial role in the immune function, because our B and T lymphocytes are derived from the thymus only, right? I mean to say. Now, pancreas, you know, right? Insulin, glucagon, somatostatin. 3 hormones are there. Ovary, estrogen, progesterone. Testis, testosterone, right? If you look into the adrenaline, one of the most important one. Epinephrine, aldosterone, cortisol. Pituitary, among all, which is more important, we can call master. The anterior pituitary secreted different, posterior pituitary stores different. Now, anyway, we're going to start everything elaboratively from now onwards. Now, look into this point. Pay attention from this particular slide. The first one we can call hypothalamus. See, friends, let me tell you one important statement to all of you. From our 10th standard, we use it to listen one line. What is the line we use it to listen? Nervous system is the one which is controlling and coordinating every activity in our body. If, see, I am speaking now, you are listening now. So whether I want to speak, whether you want to listen, the entire body movement has to be controlled and coordinated. So this control and coordination is exclusively mediated by the nervous system. That's a good point. Then the point is here, if the nervous system is monitoring each and everything, what is the point of the endocrine system now? That's a good question. Now the answer is that the nervous system always show their action by or through the help of the endocrine system. Because you know, right, nervous system give the information. That information has to reach to the targeted area with the help of hormones. So what I can conclude to all of you here, there is a region, what do we call hypothalamus. What I can conclude you, hypothalamus is the one which is acting as a mediator. It is acting as a link between the nervous system and the endocrine system. So the information of the nervous system via hypothalamus, it will go to the endocrine system. From the endocrine system, it will reach to the rest of the body. That is how the body is going to control everything. Now you can ask me, sir, the nervous system is going to secrete any kind of a hormone? That's a very good question. Most of the students, I will tell you in the next slide, most of the students will think that, sir, how does the nervous system can secrete the hormone? Friends, nervous system also secrete the hormones. Let me explain in an elaborative way. So listen. Now the point is that there are two different type of hormones are there. One is called stimulating hormone. Another one is called inhibiting hormone. Stimulating hormones are going to stimulate a specific process. Inhibiting hormone obviously inhibit the process. All the students, please look into this beautiful diagram. You can see, right, this is the pituitary gland, and you see this, friends. This is the hypothalamus. You can see, right, this entire is hypothalamus. So here the nervous system, pituitary gland, in middle is the hypothalamus. So that's why it can act like a link. So you can ask me one simple question. So how the entire endocrine system is getting regulated? I can tell to all of you that the entire endocrine system is getting regulated from the hypothalamus only. That's what we can call the master center, which is controlling the entire glands of the endocrine system. And we all people studied in the 11th standard also, the pituitary gland contain posterior pituitary and anterior pituitary. Now listen to me very correctly. Posterior pituitary consists of what? Remember, every one of you. Posterior pituitary, it never ever secrete or release or synthesize any hormone. This is a very interesting point. Then what the posterior pituitary is doing, the function is only one function. It will only store. It will store, and whenever there is a requirement, it release after storage. So it never involved in the synthesis. But anterior and most unique one, posterior pituitary is not directly involved in the regulation also. But friends, if you look into the anterior pituitary, it synthesizes the hormone, it releases the hormone, it regulates the hormone. Never get confused with that point. So friends, see, here comes the most interesting statement, what I'm trying to explain. You listen to me very correctly. Just now I have explained to all of you that posterior pituitary is not going to synthesize any hormone. It is going to store two hormones. One is called oxytocin. Another one is called antidiuretic hormone or vasopressin. This is very clear. Posterior pituitary, it is just getting stored. Now the question is that, friends, from where these two are coming from? That's the question, right? From where these two are coming? From somewhere they are coming and they're getting stored in the posterior pituitary. So who is secreting oxytocin? Who is secreting the vasopressin? Look into this beautiful picture now, every one of you. All of you listen to me very correctly. This is the nervous system. In the nervous system, there are specialized neurons. I'm using word, see here, what is the word I'm using? I am using the word specialized neuron. This specialized neuron, you know, what do you call it as? You call it as neurosecretory cell. Why did I use the word neurosecretory cell, friends? Secretory means which is releasing. Neuro means neuron. So remember my words, not every single neuron is going to synthesize the hormone. There are some neurons are going to release the hormones. The neurons which release the hormone we can call the neurosecretory cell. That's a simple point. Now that neurosecretory cells synthesize the hormone and they are reaching the posterior pituitary. That is also a good point. But the question is that from the hypothalamus, how do they reach the posterior pituitary? Hypothalamus is located somewhere, posterior pituitary located somewhere. How is the stream of transport is happening? Now look into this beautiful picture. Via a system. What do we call it, that particular system, friends? Listen to me correctly. You can call it hypophyseal system. What is hypophyseal system? You can see, right, friends, in this particular picture, you can see the red color and light blue color. What are those? Hypophyseal portal system, which nothing but arteries and veins, which are blood vessels. So through that blood vessels only, whatever the hormone synthesized in the posterior pituitary, they start moving very easily into the posterior pituitary and they get stored there. Just they will store, that's all. So remember my words. Posterior pituitary don't release anything. Whatever the hormone synthesized in the hypothalamus via hypophyseal portal system, they reach the posterior pituitary and they are getting stored in the posterior pituitary. Never ever get confused with that. But there is no problem with the anterior pituitary. Why? Anterior pituitary on its own, it can synthesize the hormones as well as, friends, it can regulate the hormones also. Not to get confused with that particular point. What are the major hormones released by the anterior pituitary? TSH. You have to read every single hormone. Thyroid stimulating hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, prolactin, adrenocorticotropic hormone, melanocyte stimulating hormone, and GH, growth hormone. All the hormones are getting released from the anterior pituitary. It will only synthesize, it will only regulate, but so anterior pituitary also under the control of what? Hypothalamus. That's why hypothalamus is the master. If you want to control anterior pituitary, if you want to control posterior pituitary, you can directly control hypothalamus. Then automatically the hormone production will stop immediately. We will see that. Now look into this. In the pituitary gland, which will compose major part. All the students remember, if you take the pituitary gland as 100%, every student remember, 75% of the pituitary gland is composed by the anterior pituitary only. Only remaining 25% of the pituitary gland, it is composed by the posterior pituitary. Not to get confused. Anterior pituitary, I am requesting you to remember other names. Our competitive exam means remembering maximum amount of information. The people who remember the maximum amount of information, they are having a better chance to answer the question correctly. It is also called adenohypophysis. Which one? Anterior pituitary. Right. What do we can call posterior pituitary? We will discuss that. We can call neurohypophysis, which never synthesize any hormone, which only stores the hormone. Not to get confused with that. So anterior pituitary, also called adenohypophysis, forms 70% of the total weight of the pituitary gland. Anterior pituitary gland having many hormones, right? So before that, we will finish the first simple one. That is the posterior pituitary gland. How many hormones it is getting stored? Oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone. It is really, really interesting. I want you to understand. Once again, I am telling you, patience is the real key. I want you to be very patient throughout your course. That patience only define your success level. Now listen to me correctly. So the posterior pituitary called as what, friends? Neurohypophysis. See what I have written here. Does not produce any hormone like the anterior pituitary. Instead of that, it stores, and when it is required, when there is a requirement, it releases. What are those two hormones? Oxytocin and ADH. ADH widely called as vasopressin. Now I'm going to explain you briefly about oxytocin, briefly about ADH. Listen to me very carefully. Friends, what is the specialty of the oxytocin? Oxytocin is involved during the childbirth. Oxytocin is also involved after the childbirth also. It is involved during the childbirth, after the childbirth. Never ever get confused with that. Now I will explain you how. During the childbirth, what happens? You all people commonly know that, friends, during the labor time, during the time of delivery, you know, right, the uterus muscles and the vaginal muscles, they are extremely smooth muscles. On the uterus cavity also, there is a receptor. For what? There is a receptor for the oxytocin on the uterus muscle. So to that, who will come and attaches? Oxytocin will come and attaches. The moment oxytocin will come and attaches, what's going to happen now? The uterine muscles start getting expanded. Look into this. In this way, it will start getting expanded. When the uterus is getting expanded, the vagina is a more smooth muscle. So the vagina starts expanding. So as a result, what happened? The baby starts coming out, especially the head region. The point is that, listen everyone, when there is a complete, elongation or the contraction of the uterus and vaginal muscles, then what happens? It gives unbearable pain. You know what is the pain? If you ask me that pain with respect to the sound, I will tell you. What is the general, tooth pain? You know, right? We people can't tolerate the tooth pain. Tooth pain is 90 decibel. This pain only we can't tolerate. We'll immediately go to hospital. When it comes to the labor time, it is more than 300 decibel, more than that. Sometimes it may reach up to 600 decibel also. It will vary from patient to patient. If you want me to tell in other way, I can tell you that 50 bones in our body fracture at a time. If the 50 bones fractured at a time, how much pain it will cause? The same pain will occur when there is a contraction of the uterus. Then what the doctors generally will do? We all people commonly know that doctors will generally give the general anesthetics. What are the general anesthetics? Which make the entire body to lose the sensation, is it? But the point is that most of the pregnant women tolerate that anesthetics. Means anesthetics won't show any action. Now you know, right? That time what doctors will use? Analgesics. What is the powerful analgesic that they will use? Morphine. Morphine at the lower doses, very lower dose. When I use the word lower dose, it is called medicinal dose. They will use at the medicinal dose. Since the morphine is an analgesic, release the pain. And every student commonly know that what is the side effect of the morphine? Sedation. So the woman automatically goes into the sleep. Then the surgery can be done very smoothly. Anyway, that's not the question here. The question is that during the childbirth, oxytocin, what it is going to do? Oxytocin stimulate the uterine muscle contraction. Not to get confused with that. What about after childbirth? That's also very important, right? See, most of the students are getting confused here also. Oxytocin never ever involved in the milk production. All the students listen and remember the point. Prolactin. Prolactin is the hormone in the body which is required for milk production. What about the oxytocin? So in the mammary gland, what will happen? The milk is getting stored in the mammary gland with the help of prolactin. That milk has to come out, right? That milk has to come out through the nipple. How the milk will come out through the nipple? What the oxytocin will do? So what the nursing infant will do? Nursing infant means the newly born baby. So the newly born baby, when they start suckling the nipple, what happened? Because of this suckling action, the level of oxytocin will be raised. The moment the oxytocin raised, what the oxytocin will do? Oxytocin will eject the milk. I am using the word eject. It never involved in production. The moment it ejects the milk through the nipple, the milk will come out. So what's the final conclusion? Oxytocin during the childbirth, it is involved in the stimulation of the uterine muscle. Whereas after the childbirth, it is involved in the ejection, not the production of the milk. Not to get confused with that. That's one of the most important hormone widely asked in the exam. That's the oxytocin. Then what will be the next one? We can call it vasopressin, which we also call it as what hormone, friends? Antidiuretic hormone. I'm asking you one small statement. Every student say this statement is true or false. Hormones always active, listen everyone, always active or always release in the body. Is this statement is a true statement or a false statement? Every one of you. Hormones are always active or always release in the body. Is this statement is a true statement or a false statement? Is it true, Srinivas? No. Every student remember my words. None of the hormone never ever released in the body if there is a no requirement. So friends, if there is a no requirement of the insulin, what is the point of releasing the insulin? Unnecessarily the blood glucose levels will be fluctuated. So what's the interesting point? Remember my words. So all the hormones are going to be released in the body whenever there is a requirement. If there is a no requirement, there is a no use of the hormone. Similarly, so what I'm trying to explain to all of you friends, when the hormone ADH is getting released. This is the interesting point. When the hormone ADH is getting released, the hormone ADH is going to release in the body whenever there is a condition. What is that condition called as? High blood osmotic pressure. Never ever get confused with that particular point. What is that? High blood osmotic pressure. Now you have to ask me a very good question. Sir, how does the blood osmotic pressure is getting increased? That's a good question. I can tell you in a simple line. Follow me, I'll explain twice, don't worry. Just because of the loss of ions. Now the question is very clear. When the ions will be lost in our body, that's a valid question. So it is lost by the dehydration, diarrhea, excessive sweating. You tell me, in the sweating, what happened? More sodium goes out. Dehydration means what? There will be no water content in the body. Already whatever the solutes are present already lost. Diarrhea. So in the diarrhea, more amount of the ions will go out of the body in the form of emotion. So in these three conditions, in the sweating, diarrhea, dehydration, in the three conditions, what's going to happen? The blood osmotic pressure is becoming extremely higher and higher and higher. The movement, so this is the stimulus. This is the trigger. I hope you're getting my point. This is the trigger. This is the stimulus that the blood osmotic pressure become higher. The moment the blood osmotic pressure become higher, what's going to happen now? This is the hypothalamus. Is it? Look into the point. Look into the point. In the hypothalamus, friends, there are some receptors are present. What do we call it? That particular receptor, friends, we call it them as the osmoreceptors. What receptor? Osmoreceptor. Look into the point. Now that osmoreceptor will come and stimulate. It will come and stimulate which cells? It will come and stimulate neurosecretory cells. What they will come and stimulate? Neurosecretory cells. The moment they will come and stimulate the neurosecretory cells, what the neurosecretory cell is going to release? It is going to release the antidiuretic hormone. Now that antidiuretic hormone, through the hypophyseal portal system, through the blood vessels, it will reach us. Where it will reach us? It will reach us to the posterior pituitary, and it is getting stored in the posterior pituitary for some time. Then immediately it starts showing their action. So you tell me, what is the condition now? Tell me. The condition is blood osmotic pressure became higher. So what should we do now? We have to maintain that, we have to bring back the blood osmotic pressure to the normal level. That is what we have to do. So now you only look into the picture, what this antidiuretic hormone is doing. The antidiuretic hormone is acting on kidney. The antidiuretic hormone is acting on the skin. The antidiuretic hormone is acting on the blood vessel. Now you tell me, what happens when it acts on the kidney? Listen everyone. Once it acts on the kidney, it decreases. What it is decreasing? It decreases the urine output. See friends, most of the ions will go out of the body in the form of what? In the form of urine only. If the urine output got decreased, what is going to happen? The ionic efflux, I mean to say, the movement of ions which are going outside, it will become completely decreases. By that, reabsorption increases. Then most of the ions will be present in the blood only. Then there is no problem. Then the blood osmotic pressure starts coming to the normal. And the antidiuretic hormone, this is also a direct question they can ask you in the exam. Which of the following hormone is involved in the controlling the perspiration? What is perspiration? Means sweating. So what the ADH is going to do? ADH is going to control or limit or decrease the sweating. When the sweating got decreased, sodium is not going out. Sodium is one of the most important ion is required in the body for the blood pressure. Then look into this, look into this. It will constrict the arteriole. See friends, if the arteriole is got dilated like this, more ions will go. But if the arteriole got constricted like this, more ions never go. So what's the simple point? Our ultimate goal is we have to maintain the ionic balance. That's why it is constricting the arteriole, decreasing the perspiration. By acting on the kidney, it is decreasing the urine output. As a result, the blood osmotic pressure will become completely normal. That is how the two hormones of the posterior pituitary, that is the oxytocin as well as the ADH, is going to act. The two simple hormones. Then the next and the most important, which is the bigger one, that is what, friends? Anterior pituitary. Why? Because anterior pituitary is going to release many number of hormones, not one or two, many. Listen, every one of you, very clearly. See, in the anterior pituitary gland, there are many type of cells are there. Many different type of cells are going to release a different type of hormones. Don't think that anterior pituitary is directly going to release every single hormone directly. No, that's wrong statement. Anterior pituitary will be helpful in stimulating different cells. Those different cells are only going to release the hormones. Never get confused with that. The first one we can call somatotropes. What are somatotropes? Somatotropes are the one that produces the hormone, human growth hormone or somatotropin. We will read it briefly in the upcoming slides. I want you to remember the name of the cell. Thyrotropes, which are involved in the stimulating the thyroid gland to produce T3 and T4 hormones. Gonadotropes, which are involved in the production of GnRH. GnRH is going to give rise to the FSH and LH. FSH and LH is involved in the production of estrogen and progesterone. Lactotropes, which are going to secrete the milk producing hormone prolactin. The most unique one, corticotropes, which are involved in releasing of the corticotropin releasing hormone. We can call CRH. CRH is going to release adrenocorticotropic hormone. This will produce many other hormones. So anterior pituitary gland is activating many other cells. Those cells are going to release the specific hormones in the body. Okay. Is it clear, every one of you so far? Please ask me whatever the doubts you are having. Everyone. As I told you, we'll go little slowly, but we'll go very effectively. Okay. See, my ultimate goal is like this. The moment I complete the lesson, you should be in a position to answer at least 80% of all the PYQs, even without reading. So that if you are doing in that way, which means that your preparation is going extremely well. So for that, you have to read extremely well. Okay. What about others? If anyone having any other doubts, I will re-explain. We just started, that's all. That's great. That's great. Okay. That's all for now. As I told to CSIR people, today and tomorrow only, all the classes through the Zoom. From a Wednesday, it will be purely through the app only. In the tomorrow class, I will explain and I will share the all PPT to all of you. Okay, friends. That's all for now. I'll see you all of you in the morning sharp 6:30 a.m. Okay. Thank you all of you. Thank you so much.